Don't make me watch this again. I didn't need this recap. There it is. You know what I'm worried about most is actually not Connie's soul, but Armin's life. He's got to transform to live, but like people are nearby. It had to be Connie too. It's so frustrating. He's like ignoring that trip to Disneyland that he took Falco on. Typically, he's the one who has the most like everyday human being common decency, if that makes sense. You know, sort of down to earth. Not really about ideas as he is about people. So that felt like a much bigger choice coming from him than it might have felt coming from some other characters. Although it would have been tragic no matter how you slice it if it was one of the cadets. Armin takes a break from dying to share a moment of sympathy with Connie, and yeah, we're still going. There's no time to feel sad because Annie's busy doing what she does best. Smushing people in horrific fashion. Just, this show is so great at like giving you conflicting emotions at the same time. On the one hand, I'm horrified. On the one hand, it's so damn cool watching Reiner and Annie fighting side by side. Hell yeah. They're like in sync, Eva style. I feel like this should have been more obvious. Like, what were they expecting? They just show up at the boat and like fly off with it? It's not looking good. Does it though? I don't know. I saw those colossal titans. Maybe they just swim faster than they walk. This is a time crunch in so many different ways. It's a time crunch against Floch and his loyalists. It's a time crunch against Eren's rumbling, destroying the planet. And it's a time crunch and like just not having enough episodes left. With these kinds of things, I feel like for them, the knowing that their delay is going to cause a lot of destruction sucks, to put it mildly. I think a lot of them will probably feel responsible for their perceived failure, but just as an outsider looking in, and just as a general principle for life, I feel like to the best of one's ability, it's important to like eliminate the areas where something is not one's fault or responsibility. You know, it's like, I believe in utmost personal responsibility in regard to one's own actions. That does not extend to the actions of others. So if you're like reacting to an evil, as long as your actions are good, and as long as you're doing what you think is right, I think it's important to recognize that the outcome is not necessarily in your hands, and you just do what you can. And that's probably enough. While I actually see this going more in the direction of like, well, nothing is in my control, including myself, I feel like there are definitely people who will overextend responsibility so that their environment is solely in their hands and everything that happens is their fault or something they could have done better towards. But I believe, even though it's hard to carry this thought in the moment, that time has a way of sort of settling the scales, and it's not going to be so much about the way things turned out or what you got or didn't get in the long term. It's going to be how you reflect on yourself, almost to an insane degree even. Very few of the things I thought were critical for defining my life in any given moment ended up being critical for defining my life, except for the things I did that I thought were wrong. Those are the things that haunt me later, not what I got or didn't get, you know, because I can always get what I want somehow. I can't like undo things I'm ashamed of. And even more weird, I become increasingly convinced that actually the thing that is right is very often the thing that will get the results that you want. It just might not be in the form you're focused on right at this moment. Personal compromise seems to lead to less, actually, not more. Again, to like an insane degree in my life experience. I can't really fathom the pain that they're experiencing right now, and also the just immense stress. They're like mid-battle, but as an outsider looking in, they didn't ask for this. They didn't do this. Not all their choices are great or satisfying, but they've got their backs against the world, and they're some of the only ones that, at least that we see, that are doing anything, and doing anything good, and having anything like a sense of decency and fear about the outcomes of their decisions. Can we carry it? Okay. Little detour. We know a thing or two about gambles in this house. In this squad. Found her gamble, she was all in. Honoring the legacy of her past. No pressure. Just imagine. Can't imagine. But did they back down? Are they huddling in corners, weeping, and putting guns in their mouths like that unfortunate character in season 1? They're not. And speaking of Erwin, I think it's very deliberate, you know, keeping with the themes of the show. The way I like to look at it is that none of this happened in a vacuum. That even the bad stuff that they've experienced has led to a moment where they can actually probably do more good or prevent the greatest bad, let's say, because of those experiences, precisely because of those experiences, in like a trajectory that we can view in them, but extends way beyond them. And this is a show where like a small squad of people can be really clutch in this way and be really valuable. But personally, I believe that's right. I believe that it doesn't take that many people to make a difference. You know, I think a lot of the biggest changes in society and in life and in groups happen at the margins. You know, like it's the extra 1% that'll push the entire thing one direction or the other. And all it takes is a few people being great, you know, maybe not even on like a grand world stage, but just as individuals to just shift that tone, that one extra degree, just as a given. I feel like this is indisputable. The results of our actions are bigger and more widespread than we can see, because we can't possibly see everyone we interact with and all of their decisions as a result of our interactions. And what's cool about that to me is that one doesn't even need to be like a Hanji or an Erwin or whomever. There's a grandiosity in just like being a solid person. Retrospective. You know what would be the most like brutal Attack on Titan thing? Would be to do like a flashback episode at this moment. But no, they wouldn't do that. Not even Attack on Titan is that cruel. But how can Mikasa and the female Titan be in the same place at the same time? Doesn't make sense. No! I refuse to admit the truth. This squad though, it's unreal. Reiner and Mikasa fighting shoulder to body. Who would have thought? To Floch's credit, like he's in there. For now. he's in there for now. He attacked, but also he protect. It's like a polar opposite to what we've seen from them in the past. Again, I think the point is not to justify their past behavior. It's not to say what they did before was right, or even that it's forgivable. It's just that I like what they are now. And it's better than a lot of the alternatives it could have been. So in that sense, it's sort of amazing to think about Annie Season 1, you know, just causing this devastation in Stois, was it? I can't remember. Stumbling into and destroying a whole church congregation to, like, being a protector. Same for Reiner. But she's at risk now, right? Because she just lost her hand, which is one of the keys for her defense strategy. There you go. We got Reiner. Their mission is a lot easier, yeah. It's just, you just blow it up. Forget like construction, forget traveling, just blow shit up, and you're good, you win. Defense missions are always the hardest and most annoying. Oh, right. You don't have a lot of options right now, though. I guess think of the children, get them out of the forest. Again, it's one of those things where, like, not his fault, right? Sort of wasted effort, wasted energy. Well, there he goes. Yeah, one thing that's been really well established is how much Magath loves the kids. Mikasa's like, watch me take out this whole train. That happened real fast. How did that happen? Who did that? Was it Falco? Nope. Falco's only seen transformations on TV. Is it okay for Annie's head to just fall off like that? Oh my god, Connie just giving it all. Remember the... This is insane. Remember the early description of Connie? Something about him being like not all there? He's all there right now. And this has been a long time coming, this whole thing. There's Peak. Peak ends up just being super deadly and terrifying. It's so bizarre. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. The way this show has me all messed up in the head, flips my perspective like 8 dozen times. It just occurred to me that like in some key ways we've done a complete 180. Now, despite my better judgment, I've like sort of chosen a side because I guess unlike some viewers, I don't think that wiping out all of humanity or most of humanity is the solution to anything. But that means I'm rooting for this like group of Titans, which is sort of bizarre. Although of course we have a lot of the original faces in the mix as well. And a whole bunch that aren't. I wonder if there's a unifying thing you could use to identify early on who ends up in this crew and who doesn't. Just to take a stab at it, I think maybe one thing you might find in all of them is a focus on people and their relationships over objectives and ideologies. In fact, I think a lot of the people in this squad right now struggled with that choice very directly. Like John, you know, he was torn between joining the military police and having comfort and supporting his comrades. And, you know, here he is all these years later. I'm also super terrified because I feel like it's not likely that all of them make it out of this alive. And he's already missing a head, like a whole head. Either... Yeah. This is an interesting one. It's like a theme rather than, you know, a horse or soup. When Titans were the greatest threat, Titans were the enemy. When countries were the greatest threat, countries were the enemy. For as long as people hold firm to different beliefs, there will always be an enemy. Do you know who the real enemy is? Spoiler alert, it's you. Yeah, but my dude made it happen though. Oh, he looks really interesting. I forgot they all have their sort of unique physicalities to it. Sort of bird-like. Falco! Falco the bird. But the first time never goes well. How, like, cognizant and conscious is he right now? I mean, Floch is in there. Oh, and Hanji's attacking him. I mean, give Floch credit, it's more than just his own survival that he's thinking about, even if that's the origin of all this. Oh, who got him? Gabby again? Damn, she has like the most clutch bullets of all time. This is insane. This whole episode is insane. The action just keeps going. Who killed them better? The Titans or Oh my god. Style points. It rains blood. I know. It's disgusting and dark. I'm overwhelmed, if you can't tell. I was feeling it. He's berserk. No! 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 No, we have enough to worry about without fighting each other. Damn, Magath coming in clutch. He really loves these kids. But is Floch dead? It was really unclear. So the solution was just like killing everyone. Wait, what took out the train though? I didn't get that. That whole thing was one close call after another. This feels like an obvious sacrifice, self-sacrifice. Hey, he's still going! The least special person of all time being unbelievably special. Shaddis just, I don't know, like he discarded his preconceptions about life and was free to become amazing. Why don't we sail it out of here? The Magath Shaddis adventures. Sinking it is way less satisfying than my idea. Just two guys on the high seas about embracing that good life. That's when I realized anyone can be special. All it depends on is what you do in the next moment. Hope is never lost as long as you're alive. Amazingly, right? Like this beautiful irony. Oh! Focus. Yeah, they're not making it out of here. Keith Shaddis. Don't you forget it. I don't know his first name, but Theo Magath. They know. Damn. It's sad. But this is another one of those examples where I feel like a character's death is sad, but not tragic, if that makes sense. It's sad because the life has been cut short, and because we lose characters we've been attached to. The reason it's not a tragedy, and I would even say has some sort of like triumphant notes to it, is because they managed to complete their arcs and attain something of immense value. Even if it only existed for moments, they sort of reached the pinnacle of what is possible as characters and people. And a really interesting common element, at least with some of them, amazingly, is the idea of freedom. There's so much talk about freedom in the show, but to me it's these moments that I feel like hit on freedom the best, like actual freedom. For example, take Erwin, this amazing, talented, incredibly handsome figure, basically spending his whole life torn between a deep desire, which you could argue comes from weakness. You know, it comes from the pain or trauma. You know, it comes from the pain of loss, you know, the feeling of absolute infuriation over the unjust death of his father, and the desire for revenge, and the desire to be right, the desire to know the truth and in that sense be powerful, because the truth is usually reserved for people with power. It has all these other great qualities like compassion and unbelievable courage and strategic genius and the ability to act justly for the most part under pressure. And the tension between those two things reaches sort of a boiling point right before his final charge. And in that moment, for the first time, he actually does something like surrender, you know? He surrenders his power to Levi, who gives him just a moment of space to think and reflect. And in that moment, he is able to act in what he feels is the higher good and sacrifice everything in the process, but in a very real sense, at least for the audience, and at least for him, only in that moment, has something of unbelievable power and value, and also is a freedom. He's like unencumbered by the trauma of his past and his own personal demons and temptation towards things he doesn't actually live to be right. And he's just like this perfect creature that can lead the most unbelievable one-armed charge of all time. Then take Shaddis, who at one point was Erwin's competitor, losing to him in a key sense, having this whole construction of thought about like one's own value being sort of this predestined thing, and wanting to believe he was special or some kind of chosen one or designated by fate to be amazing. And in there is like a deep existential confusion, probably a great fear about life and mortality, an insecurity based on not being able to manipulate the universe to his will despite great desires like his desire for love from a specific woman. But the world refuses to conform to this very narrow vision of it that he would like to hold. And from there, a potential path for him is just becoming more bitter, more resentful. You see him flirting with that by sabotaging Eren's gear and having the universe basically tell him in his own terms that he's worthless. But that's not the end of his story. From there, he does what I feel like is a shedding of that. And he sort of gives up on being special. And the beautiful poetic justice of it all is that he becomes someone who is really special. Or at least he becomes someone who does really amazing things, really great things, really strong and powerful things, seemingly without thought to his own image or status or his own desires. And, you know, I don't think he's as free at the end as Erwin is. You know, he's sort of longing for death in a sense, but he's definitely a lot closer than he was when we saw him have that existential meltdown. He ultimately dies a hero and a free man. And even though it's hard to articulate, I feel like there's something in there that's universal and is sort of the ultimate. It's like rising so high that you can see the land, and from there navigating peacefully among it, rather than trying to artificially wrench reality into what you wish it would be to soothe your own pain. And end credit scene. It's a gamble. We are gambling. Birds. Right. I mean, there's about a million other reasons, or more, in the world, depending on how big it is. He didn't just get shot in the face, he's like legit full of holes. Can we help Armin? Wow. It's huge coming from Annie. Speaking of like being free, like shedding things, I don't know, I feel like if you're gonna make a choice, you just do your best to make it with open eyes, and then hopefully gives you strength. Like I said before, I think this position initially makes you weak because you've eliminated tools, you know, you've eliminated like anger or rage or resentment. But deep down I know that that is the stronger position. You know, the ability to see more, seeing enough that you can have compassion, not boiling things down into binary camps, not being quick to be resentful and use that as fuel for a position that one perhaps does not fully understand. That to me is a higher path, and is stronger, if only in the sense that it takes more. It takes a bigger person to bear that burden.